The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Alldus podcast. I'm your host, Ben Sparks, and today we are continuing with our digital transformation series, focusing on ServiceNow. Today we are very excited to host Sachin, who is a SVP of Digital Technology at Tech Mahindra. He is a strategic technology leader who builds and scales enterprise-grade platforms that deliver digital adoption in Fortune 1000 companies. He prides himself on helping innovate, optimize, and grow businesses by applying technology to achieve business outcomes. He uses strategy and execution to build and scale technology through organizational change and collaboration and innovation. Today, Sachin is going to be talking about a number of different topics, including the exciting years that he's had at Tech Mahindra, but also focusing in primarily on the macro themes relating to digital transformation in and around his portfolio of customers, best practice, and also looking at the exciting world of AIOps. So Sachin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. Excited to be here.
Oh, us too. So obviously people will have heard of Tech Mahindra. Let's start by giving our listeners a quick high-level overview of the organization.
So Tech Mahindra is a $5-6 billion global system integrator, managed services provider. We work with a number of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 clients across the globe. We have presence in 60 plus countries now. We have been in existence for close to 35 years now. So it's a happening place. It's a place where we are doing a lot of work, exciting work around digital technologies around the globe.
So let's talk about you for a little while. I'd love to know a bit more about your responsibilities and how you fit into the picture over there at Tech Mahindra.
Sure. So my role is as a senior vice president for digital technology is shepherding the digital practice within North America. I'm responsible for building and scaling large enterprise-grade platforms, Fortune 1000 clients around customer experience platforms, data platforms, driving growth and digital transformation. There is some interesting work we are also doing that you mentioned about AI ML. So that's in last year and a half, that's a big focus.
And you've been at Tech Mahindra for a number of years now. Like I said, a large part of the 25 that they've been around. I'd love to know a little bit about your kind of career and some of the sort of maybe key promotions or moves that you've made and maybe why they were so impactful to you over the years.
Sure, no, absolutely. It has been an absolute phenomenal journey, I would say 25 years. And when I joined Tech Mahindra, we were literally less than 100 million in revenue, 350 people across the globe. We didn't have too many locations then either. And from that humble beginnings, today we are from 100 million upwards of $5 billion, more than 120,000 people across 60 countries. So it has been a phenomenal growth story, growth journey. I think company has grown. I personally feel I have grown substantially as a part of that journey as we have gone along. I have worked in Asia, I have worked in Europe. I came to US about 14 years. And it has been a phenomenal journey. When I left UK, I think in terms of the journey and turning points, I would say that was probably one moment.
So let's zoom out quite a lot. I have quite a wide question here for you. And I know that having spoke before the podcast that you've been involved with a number of different industry segments within your portfolio over the years. So if you can summarize, what would you say some of the more macro themes are that are driving digital transformation in enterprise or like I said, the 1,000 customers?
Yeah, if you asked me that question about maybe 1.5 years ago, my mind would have been more nuanced and I would say this and that. Listen, this last 1.5 years has completely accelerated digital and has made it, more of a mandate for most of the companies that I'm working with. It's a matter of now, where it was maybe an innovation project 2 years ago, and where people were experimenting with technology. Today, it's a matter of survival. There are so many big brands that have used the opportunity of this entire pandemic, remote work, remote experiences, all of this to really drive their digital journey, start their direct to consumer kind of initiatives, launch themselves in a big way in digital because user adoption. Right? Key aspect has been always user adoption. How do you drive adoption? While the companies can invest multiple $1 million in technology, user adoption is always tricky. But the pandemic and the fact that we all have worked very successfully remotely for a year and a half means remote experiences, digital technology has got a tremendous boost. I think this is an opportunity for digital transformation in a true sense. If you looked at digitization and if you looked at digital transformation, for me, there's a big difference there in terms of fundamentally looking at the business model transformation and saying, is there an opportunity for my business to not only transform how we do work, but also as long as I'm true to my purpose and as long as I'm true to my why do I exist as a company or as a business, I think everything else in my mind has to be questioned today as a part of the digital transformation, and is being questioned by many successful companies. And I think that is, to me, that is the essence of digital transformation.
It's interesting you've said accelerated. So it sounds like this was already in play pre-pandemic. We've just fast-tracked it to handle the challenges that 2020 brought, if I hear you rightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think many of these trends were significantly already in play. The pandemic has only accelerated them in a big way. What the pandemic and the overall direction now is really about, how do you really look at new revenue streams? When we say digital transformation, how do you enable new revenue stream? How do you enable growth? How do you even look at product simplification for your portfolio? Because you can digitize a journey, but if your existing portfolio, if your products are common, the customer adoption, the user adoption is going to be limited. And what the industry is now doing is fundamentally looking at the simplification from a business process perspective, simplification from a product portfolio perspective, and really building entire value chain with an aim to digitize the customer experience journeys. As long as you take the holistic view of the entire value chain and not just the point to workflow automated solutions, I think there is tremendous opportunity and tremendous readiness from a user.
So I'm guessing you've got a few use cases across your portfolio. Are there any that you could share with us, either success stories or area or something that you feel really showcases some of the transformational trends you've just mentioned?
One of the recent ones that we concluded, the customer experience portal for a tier one communication service provider. They were integrating a number of their portals from a number of diversified companies that they had acquired over a course of period. And the user experience was not the best in terms of a seamless user experience across the journey. Performance on many of these pages was suboptimal. And when we started the journey, what I said is fundamentally you have to give user experience front and center. You have to make user experience front and center. And in some ways, technology becomes the enabler and not the driver for the transformation. So in some ways, you can look at and say the tail cannot wag the dog. And hence we put business process and effortless customer experience front and center, and realigned the entire design architecture in such a way that the content management systems, the entire e-commerce platform was delivering to the design that was laid out from a customer experience and a user experience. We had to fundamentally define the customer experience journeys, user experience journeys, create a seamless experience across multiple channels, a physical store, the digital portal, chat, call center agents, create a seamless customer experience and deliver that experience enabled by technology, not the other way.
Fantastic. Any others that you can share?
There's an interesting, fairly fundamental transformation that we are still in the midst of replacing a mainframe legacy system, another Fortune 500 company. And this is a 45-year-old legacy system, which is ingrained in their business processes. Wow. Which is part of all their user experience journeys, which is part of their fabric, really, in terms of entire IT processes. And we are at the moment building a cloud native order management platform for them, which is all microservices architecture, and simplifying the user journey, simplifying the product catalog. And it's a learning curve. It's a huge learning curve in terms of the intricacies that develop over a course of time for some of these legacy systems, because people come to depend on it. Your business processes get woven around some of these legacy systems. And when you try to unravel some of these from the seam, it does expose you to quite a few surprises. When we were sitting down and looking at the overall architecture, there was so much of learning in terms of just the domain in the business domain for this company, in terms of domain decomposition. In my mind, that was probably the most important aspect in the entire journey, where we looked at the business, we looked at the journeys. When you create a pragmatic balance between microservices, you want to drive very atomic, independent, encapsulated, etc. microservices, but at the same time, you're looking at a very complex business domain, which has long-standing orchestrations. It does require a pragmatic design approach wherein you take a balance between the true architectural principles, create a domain decomposition, which can allow you to implement something like microservices in a fairly complex, long-standing business. Yes, very, very evolving and very intricate.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So obviously, again, when we spoke before, your role is platform and product agnostic. We're talking more about wider digital transformation here, but obviously we can't talk digital transformation without mentioning ServiceNow. Could you talk to me a little bit about the value you're seeing that bring into the customers where you have brought that to as the platform of choice to the forefront?
Yeah, we do a significant amount of work with ServiceNow. And to me, ServiceNow is a great enabler of workflow automation, ITSM. Yes, there are a number of use cases that we have done around ITSM, around workflow automation, and around complex business processes. But what's really exciting and new for us at this stage around this now ecosystem is even extending ServiceNow for some of the telecom domain and use cases around telecom. So imagine the operational support systems, OSS systems in telecom domain, which essentially are running your network, running network inventory, complex provisioning orders, doing service assurance functions within the customer domain. And at this stage, we are extending ServiceNow to interact with telecom networks, gather the intelligence, integrate CMDB from a ServiceNow perspective in a telecom domain. This is early days, I would say, because this goes beyond conventional workflow automation from a ServiceNow perspective. But very exciting times. We're extending certain capabilities. We are working with ServiceNow as well, and some very interesting upcoming clients as well on that.
Fantastic. I know obviously AIOps is a passion of yours, and when we were thinking about what's next for organizations in digital transformation, AIOps comes up so much. Would you mind giving us a high level overview of defining, what is AIOps? And then I'd love to know your views on how this is adding value to organizations and maybe what the next steps are for companies who should embrace AIOps into their business.
Sure, no, absolutely. I think our journey with AIOps started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I realized that there is no single solution which can truly address holistic operations scenarios. When you look at operations world today, it's fairly complex. Cloud makes it, adds a twist to the whole story. And as you look at many of the products around, there are products and companies built around one or two specific use cases. So what we started doing is really looking at the wide spectrum of operational use cases and assembling a solution which includes multiple components to often from machine learning perspective. So we started fairly simple. We started with simple incident classification, creating closed loop automation for incidents. So in some ways, you could say a reactive but closed loop. And now where we are headed with the capabilities is more proactive, more active monitoring of the applications infrastructure, detecting problems before they become problems, dynamic thresholding. You're talking about scenarios in terms of correlation of events, so you can draw noise from the. You're talking about next best action recommendations coming from the set of incidents and alarms that you're gathering from your IT domain. So AIOps is, in my mind, fairly exciting journey. I think we are in some ways only getting started. There are some very interesting work we are doing, and with a couple of to bring not only IT ops scenarios, but even extending AI ops to some of the business scenarios, looking at order fallouts, looking at specific business scenarios which can help with machine learning and artificial.
Obviously, when we're looking at best practice, I'd love to know your thoughts. You've obviously been through multiple implementations, as we mentioned before. You've obviously looked at complex infrastructure that has been in place for 45 years. If you were to think of yourself as a coach and talk to a peer VP or SVP, or even looking at through the framework of coaching a C-suite level stakeholder, which I'm sure you do on a daily basis through digital transformation, what would be some of your advice around best practice?
I think in my mind, ultimately, it's about people. Technology business is about people. It's about getting the collaboration going between multiple stakeholders, ensuring that your cross-functional team is working seamlessly. For me personally, automation is a big best practice, is a big initiative that I drive wherever I'm involved. And for me, business agility is. So when I look at best practices, it's about how do you align technology? How do you ensure that technology does deliver the business value and delivers that in a ever increasing requirements for business agility? So if I look at Agile, for example, and what we are doing with forming Agile Squad, I think that collaboration aspect, that agility aspect, and that automation aspect, if you can bring all these aspects together, in my mind, that is the best way of ensuring that you are delivering to business. Ultimately, for me, it's about business outcome. All of us enjoy working on exciting technologies and enjoy having architectural conversations. At the end of the day, it's about delivering business outcomes and ensuring business outcomes in a most expedient.
Lastly, just before we come to a close, again, I think someone mentioned it to me the other week that you always think that senior people have always been senior, which I thought was a really interesting way to put it. Look, if you could go back and do it all again, if you could go back, 15 years and give some advice to your younger self, just generally. I
think there'll be many things probably. If I look back, I think my journey has never been perfect. I think it has been like a flowing river in my mind that you learn through the process of dirtying your hands, getting to the nitty-gritties, and actually getting into the weeds, as you say. But I would say, if I look back, I would say, don't rush. Enjoy the journey. What happens is, I think, at least for me, early phases of the career, you are set in terms of where you're headed, what you want to do, and it helps to take your time, enjoy the journey, build the long-term relationships, because ultimately we are in a marathon here. You have a substantial career in front of you, and if you look at the whole picture in a well-rounded way, I would say just take it easy and enjoy the journey.
I think we can sometimes get caught up in the day-to-day, don't we? Don't really put things into perspective. No, I think that's awesome. Thank you so much. Sachin, this has been great. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. Is there anything you'd like to add before we call it a day?
Thank you very much for asking me on the program. I checked some of the prior speakers, so thank you for asking me here. It's a privilege. Good to be talking to you, Ben.
You too, sir. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.